Anti-migrant groups are whipping up anger and hatred.
I hate foreigners, and the government is doing nothing.
And the scapegoating of migrants is threatening the fabric of our country.
We are coming for you.
As the economy breaks down, South Africa's migrant community is in the firing line.
The devil sent other devils here to this country to come and sell drugs to our children, to come and sell body parts of our people, to come and take the jobs of South Africans.
Mackenzie says nothing will convince him otherwise when it comes to undocumented foreign nationals.
They are gonna go home. Hulle gaan huis toe gaan. Abahambe. We don't want illegal foreigners here. Where the PA, after we've been sworn in, I'm going straight to Rahima Musa Hospital, where we're going to switch off the oxygen of illegal foreigners.
The assertion that foreigners are responsible for South Africa's economic woes is contested and oversimplifies the country's multi-layered challenges. Structural issues such as systemic inequality, apartheid legacy, governance failures, and global economic trends like inflation and unemployment play significant roles in the nation's economic difficulties. While concerned about foreigners, particularly regarding employment, access to public services or resources, are common, there is limited empirical evidence linking them directly to these broader issues. The former president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, agrees with this notion. Listen to the following clip for further context.
I'm a former president of this country, and you'll never ever convince me that this economy is in crisis because of foreigners. It's not true. It's not true. It's because there's certain things that have happened with regard to the economy which have produced economic crisis, resulting, among other things, in unemployment. So we've got to solve this problem. We've got to deal with this economy and deal with these problems of unemployment.
Some contend that even undocumented workers do positively contribute to the economy of South Africa in sectors like agriculture and construction. Blaming them distracts from addressing critical issues like education, job creation, and industrial growth. For a refined understanding, data-driven insights from the institutions like State Africa, South Africa, universities, NGOs, the World Bank, and the South African Reserve Bank are essential. However, in this video, we shall explore this topic from the South African educational system perspective. To know more about this issue, stay tuned. Welcome back to the Fraud News channel. And I'm your host, Boss Robert. And to those who have subscribed to the channel, thank you very much. And to those who haven't, please show your brother some love. Back to the story. Let us begin by watching the following videos to set the tone to this discussion.
According to UNICEF, about 250,000 school-going children drop out of school every year. This figure tripled to 750,000 during the COVID-19 pandemic. During a National Assembly Committee briefing this month, the Department of Basic Education data revealed that at least 400,000 children who started grade 1 in 2011 did not make it to grade 12 in 2022. Now, let's discuss this further. We're now joined via Zoom by Deputy Chairperson of the Education for Social Justice Foundation, Mr. Hendrik Makaneta. Sir, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Now, how concerned are you about the escalating pupil dropout figures that we are hearing of? I mean, of course, we also want to know what the drivers and risk factors are for dropping out.
Yes, definitely the dropout rates in the terrain of education, particularly basic education, is a cause for great concern for all of us, particularly as activists in the terrain. We really want to call upon government to do something about it, to ensure that learners are able to create a future for themselves. And if you look at the wide range of factors, there are many factors. In actual fact, this problem of dropout affects in the main, the majority of learners who are affected are those who are found in the FET phase, particularly grade 10. Some people call it the grade 10 crisis. That is where you find that, after grade 9, the majority of learners, even those who don't make it sometimes in grade 9, drop out for one or other reason. We have child-headed families whereby, you find that children who are heading or who are heads of such families also get affected in the main, and some of them end up seeking employment. But we also have teenage pregnancy, which affect in the main, as I said, that grade 10 category. And, there are many other issues. Poverty, unemployment, and inequality in society sometimes has a way of, affecting, this dropout rates. And we believe that in as much as government has tried to do something about it, but up to so far, they are not winning the war against dropouts.
I mean, one of the reasons that UNICEF has cited are that pupils' failure to understand teachers in the class is also one of the many causes of them dropping out. And I mean, we're talking here, if we go back to your reference of the grade 10 crisis, we're talking here about 15, 16-year-olds. What does that mean then in terms of, the system, the South African system? Because where do these children go when they drop out?
Many of them are, left out. They join the long queue of unemployment. And I think that UNICEF is correct because, I can't necessarily blame only teachers, but also the fact that some of them have been progressed, in the previous grades, even though they did not do very well. One of the philosophers, the Russian philosophers, Levi Vygotsky, characterized this problem as the zone of proximal development. So in other words, the majority of learners are found in the wrong zone of proximal development. This actually means that it becomes very difficult for a teacher to teach grade 10 mathematics, as an example, when the learner is developmentally in grade 8, but physically in grade 10. So COVID-19 as well, exacerbated the problem, which was already there even before COVID-19, when learners could not finish or complete some of the topics that are designed in relation to the CAPS document. If you look at the annual teaching plan, as an example. So that is why initially I said that there are many factors. But to deal with this problem, of course, commitment of teachers is needed, especially in public schools. That is where the problem is, because in private schools, we don't really see a lot of these problems.
Since the 1990s, education has been required for all South Africans from age 7 to 15. Last December, the government announced that 70% of students passed their final examination to finish high school. In 2008, the passage rate was about 63%. There have been increases each year since then. Professor Shireen Motala at the University of Johannesburg says access to basic education is no longer the problem in South Africa. She says most children stay in school until they are about 16. The problem now, she says, is that large numbers of them leave without completing high school. Students take an examination known as the matric in grade 12, their final or matriculation year. But Professor Matala says only around 45% of the children who started school in 2000 sat for the matric last year. South Africa has a 24% unemployment rate. Those who drop out must compete with better educated people for jobs. Educational researchers also point to another problem. They say South African schools do not produce enough students with the skills for higher education in math and science. Researcher Graham Block says many schools are not well equipped. The reality of poverty, he says, is that many children do not see laboratories or libraries at school. 92% of the schools do not have libraries. Also, education specialists say in many cases, teachers and school principals do not have the skills or training to do their jobs. In other cases, they are simply not doing their duty to provide an education. Professor Matala says a number of teachers were poorly trained during the system of apartheid, or racial separation, in South Africa. Apartheid ended in 1994. Secondly, she says, teachers have been confused by the many educational reform efforts in the last 15 years. And finally, she thinks language differences in the classroom have not gotten as much attention as they should. Subjects such as math and science are taught in English, starting at about age 10. But South Africa has 11 official languages and many more unofficial ones. South Africa's Minister of Basic Education promises a number of improvements. Andri Matshega says teacher development efforts will focus on subject and content knowledge and making sure the correct teachers are in the correct jobs.
Despite significant investment in education post-apartheid, dropout rates remain alarmingly high, undermining the gains made in broadening access to education. The PSA report notes that government spending on education increased substantially by over 551% between 1994 and 2012. Policies such as compulsory education, no-fee schools, and feeding scheme have been implemented to universalize primary education. However, despite this effort, the dropout rate remains concerning. Of the 1.4 million students who enrolled in grade 1 in 1998, only 552,000 reached matriculation in 2009, and even fewer qualified for university entry. This reflects a significant failure in the public education system. Let us look at the following video to give some context to the deplorable condition prevailing in some of the South African schools.
The shocking state of Eastern Cape schools is leading to children dropping out. That's according to some school principals.
Now, nearly 2,000 learning institutions still use pit toilets while many buildings are dilapidated. The Department of Education in the province says it can't afford the 73 billion rand that's needed to fix those schools.
ENCA's Ronald Musenda went and found out more.
Teachers of Gobizizwe Primary School say conditions at this 36-year-old school are unbearable.
Imeko ayibakhuthazi tu abantwana kuba kaloku abantwana nesikolo esi ukwakhiwa kwaso sibanika umdla kuba abantwana beze esikolweni ngoku hayi asibakhuthazi tu kangoba inani lehlile kunelo nyaka kupheleyo inani.
Another school in a nearby village is also in shambles. Jongimpuma Primary says the Education MEC Fundile Gadi visited the school in March, promising to fix the infrastructure. Jongimpuma Primary School is one of 5 dilapidated mud schools in this village in Port St. John's. School teachers here say that the Department of Education in the province has not fulfilled its promise to build them a new school.
Abantwana apha bahleli abakutholi ukufunda kakuhle kuba kungena lo moya kunje ngamazinka aphaphatheka sisikolo sinja sinamahlanga. Ngoku lonto yenza sihlukumezeka ngolo hlobo ngoba kudala sizama okokubana no kwesikolo masibe siyasaka izinto zinje sasakhiwa sithi ngezandla zethu.
The The Department of Education says a budget of more than 37 billion rand has been set aside for all school programs during the 2020-2021 financial year. Only 1.5 billion rand of that budget has been allocated to address school infrastructure.
In tertiary education, the throughput rates are likewise troubling, with only about 33% of students completing their studies within the regulation time and 52% dropping out. While enrollment is higher in higher education has increased, the high dropout rates indicate that many students are unprepared for the rigors of university level work, largely due to poor quality primary and secondary education. The PSA report emphasized that a weak schooling system is responsible for poor performance of many university students, with bridging programs often being required to address this gap. A study in 2009, commissioned by the Higher Education South Africa, found that many first-year students lacked sufficient reading, writing, and comprehension abilities, and that only a small percentage were proficient in the language of instruction, while many lacked the required mathematical skills. This academic unpreparedness contributes to the high dropout rates at tertiary level. Stats SA in 2021 reported that the number of school dropouts in the country had increased, with about 3% of 15-year-olds and about 9% of 7-year-olds dropped out of school. Another study also indicated that out of 100 learners who began grade 1, only 40 of them reached grade 12, and out of the 40, only 12 qualify for tertiary education. This suggests that all of the grade 1ers, only 12% of them qualify for university. The overall message from these statistics is that without significant improvements in the quality of primary and secondary education, the dropout rates at tertiary institutions will continue to undermine South Africa's post-apartheid gains in educational access. We shall show you a video to give further context to this issue.
The 77% is coming to you from Alexandra Township, which is located on the ragged edge of Sandton, Africa's richest square mile. This community is the opposite of that. It is marred by high unemployment, poverty, as well as corruption. Perhaps it is the perfect location to debate South Africa's education system, as well as its battle with the high dropout rate in schools. Across the country, about 40% of all grade 1 learners will leave the schooling system before finishing grade 12, which is South Africa's last year of study. So what is behind this problem? I want to put that to a panel of experts well-versed in today's discussion. And I want to begin the conversation with Rahima. We know that a dropout is not a singular event. Nobody wakes up with a burning desire to leave school.
In the public imagination, dropout is often thought of as, or a dropout is often thought of as someone who is lazy or irresponsible and has no interest in school anyway. That is not what we have found. Instead, dropout comes at the end of a long process of disengagement in which a young person is pushed or pulled out of school because of factors in their home, school, or community environment.
So internal and external factors, Zama, this is where I want to bring you in. In your view, what is, behind the high dropout rate in South Africa?
I think, in South Africa, we can't talk of any crisis without talking about the socio-economic conditions that we find ourselves in.
So, Zama, what would you say then to someone who says, look, I grew up in poverty and I turned out just fine?
No, but that's a drop in an ocean. And that's what the government wants us to believe. But we're talking about learners who have to choose between survival and staying in school. We're sitting today here in Alex, in one of the communities that has high levels of child-headed households. So these kids have to choose whether, do I go to school or find means of sustenance to support my younger siblings.
So what I'm hearing, Asanda, from Zama is that there is a relationship between the high dropout rate that we're seeing in South Africa with poverty. Do you agree?
Yes, I do agree.
And your take on that, please?
You find that in a classroom you have maybe 70 learners and there's one teacher. And you can't be a teacher that is trying to intervene when you are faced with 70 learners. That's why a lot of kids go through this education system and they are missed, because no one has time to really focus on one learner to find out what are they battling with, what are they carrying when they come to school.
Ntato, that pressure also imploded on you when you were in school and you decided to quit. What compelled you to do that?
Well, one of the reasons was I was actually bullied at school. So it's one of the drives of having low self-esteem.
And apart from bullying, anything else that affected you from, your personal perspective?
I'll say social backgrounds, where I come from, because I'm always affiliated with people who are on the wrong side of the tracks. So I was actually exposed to gangsters, drug abuse as well.
And what was the result of that?
Well, the result of that, I ended up being with the wrong crowd. I ended up being addicted to drugs, actually. And what happened was we did a housebreaking, which went wrong. And I actually went to prison for 2 years for that. And while I was in prison, I actually gathered my thoughts and did some introspection to say, okay, this is where I am. And I just grabbed every opportunity where I could read books. I just need to better myself.
It highlights to me that, you didn't have good role models in your life. And I want to bring in Kanyile. The importance of having good role models in a bid to keep young people in schools. Is that important for you as a young man who is living in Alexandra Township?
Yes, it is of utmost importance, because actually talking to someone who's been through what you are currently going through kind of gives you some light on what you can and can't do. So having that really points you in the right direction, keeps you going. It's motivation, to be quite frank. And whenever someone is motivated, they actually have the necessary energy to do what they are supposed to do. So it's been very helpful to me.
Landi, do you know of any young people, your peers, your friends, who dropped out of school?
Yes, I do have a friend who once dropped out of school.
And generally, what is the trend? Why do you think are the main reasons why they've stayed out of school?
Well, for her, it was because of a situation she was going through at home, which affected her academics. And she felt as though, because the school did not understand, she felt that the best decision was to drop out.
Sure. Gracious, I'm going to move to you. You are an influencer. You motivate young people to stay in school. Talk to me about some of the challenges that they face. Why are they more prone to stay out of school?
Well, most of them, the only thing that is stopping them from continuing is because of the lack of support that they require from the anchors that they have in their lives. Some with the teachers not being able to support them by applying the same formula on each and every one of them instead of studying them. Another thing is the responsibilities that they have back at home. Some have to take care of the kids. Some have to travel a long way to get to school.
Sure. So what we have established so far is that there are a variety of reasons as to why young people drop out of school. It could be because of the burden of taking care of their siblings, but also it could be just the lack of motivation, not having positive role models to keep them in school. Whatever the reasons, policies are important, and the Department of Education, or even government, has implemented a number of policies over the years. The question is, why aren't they working? I want to put that question to Zama.
No, thanks, Busi. I think firstly we must just make it clear that the department has just decided to ignore this problem. And that's why it has been getting worse and worse.
So who should be holding the department accountable?
I think across society, we've all ignored this problem. I don't think it's just the department. I went through public school. I know a lot of people who have dropped out, and we know that they don't succeed in other avenues. They're stuck in poverty and unemployment. And the public hasn't done anything. They just looked at the problem and said, yeah, sure, we know it happening. Because the communities are the ones that bear the brunt. Because when these learners drop out, they are there in the communities suffering with unemployment. They are there struggling with drugs. So I think we have, as a society, not just to look at the department, but also there hasn't been a strong, concerted campaign to say, comrades, we have a problem here. How do we mitigate?
All right, let's hear from Landi. What's your take?
So I think Zama said something interesting about the society ignoring the dropouts. I don't think that the society is ignoring the dropouts because ignoring is when someone sees something and turns a blind eye to it. But to the society, it wasn't turned to a blind eye, because what happened was there were numerous strikes that took place within the community of Alexandra, but the government ignored that. So there were initiatives that were taken by the students to change what is happening within the public schools within Alexandra. So I could say that the society didn't really ignore the whole dropout rates, but rather the dropout became a norm due to the ignorance of the government.
And we know that, like Rahima said, everybody has a role to play. It's not only the Department of Education, not only government. I'm interested in zooming into learner behavior, right? Are we holding young people accountable? The very same young people who we know can be problematic in schools, disturbing class and so forth. Are we holding young people accountable?
Well, in public schools, that is not possible because for a teacher who has 71 students in a class, that teacher does not have time to pay attention to behavior. That teacher moves forward with the syllabus. Also, coming from Alexandra community, no one comes out of Alexandra and is seen as a good person. No one comes out of Alexandra as a good person. So already holding a student accountable for a certain behavior, it's quite unreasonable to do that because already you have categorized them. So you can't expect something from someone of which you have already categorized.
So we've spent a good amount of time establishing what the problem is and issues related to that, but I'm more interested in the solutions. What are the solutions? And Zama, take us through, solutions that we could actually implement.
The central spot of organizing, I think it's at schools themselves. Because we haven't talked about the conditions at schools that push out the learners. How learners feel alienated in school and feel like, I don't need to be here. This is not helping me. So we have to also address issues in the schools. Issues around infrastructure. Issues around overcrowding. And how that is not conducive for learning and teaching.
Do you think that learners then, or even the teachers themselves, have the capacity to do that? To come up with the solutions?
That's the central place of organizing.
Sure, and I want to hear from the learners here. Do you think that you are empowered enough to come up with the solution to this very big problem that is not even easy enough for the department to solve?
Yes, as students, we can have all the complaints and take them to the teachers, but it's not within us to change them. After all, they are the ones who are guiding us up to post-destination school and stuff. We rely on the teachers to be the ones who actually help us. So expecting students to be the ones who come up with the solution is somehow unfair to the students. We come with the problems, we also come with the solutions. It's not a fair game. It's now 70-30, and that's never fair.
Sure. Let me give you a chance to comment on what you wanted to say.
So like Zama said, it all starts with us, those who've traveled that journey. I mean, I've dropped out of school. I did go to prison. And because of God's grace, and I'm still here today to tell my story. So I believe that people such as myself, we need to motivate the kids out there on what to do exactly, to make the right choices and not to get derailed. And especially when it comes to drug abuse or being bullied at school or having a low self-esteem. And I think people such as myself, if we can address that, because we do have hands-on experience on what life can prevail if you travel that road, that dark road that is.
I know that is something that the campaign is advocating for, connecting young people with good role models who will not only inspire them, but teach them about the importance of staying in school.
Absolutely. Our research has found that people who come from difficult circumstances, challenging circumstances, are able to stay in and succeed at school because of positive anchors in their lives. A caring adult who checks in with them, who plays that role of mentor, maybe even a counselor, does make a significant difference with school and, academics as well as the difficulties in their personal lives.
Is it enough to just say that, the responsibility rests on students, on parents? How do we then get to the solution? And I want to hear from you, Gracious.
Oh, I think it boils down to us collaborating together. And I think some teachers have really done that, because if I go back to my history at school, when I was doing grade 5, I was unable to read until I was moved to another school. When I got there, the teacher was available for me. She sat down with me, started from scratch, taught me the vowels and the consonant. And here I am now. I was the top learner from grade 8 up until grade 12. Imagine a person who was unable to read, but I found that personal anchor in my life that was able to teach me. Now I'm a university student.
And I think that is the perfect way to wrap up this conversation.
Having identified this gap, the South African government created a scarce skills list of professional jobs in various fields such as medical field, engineering, applied sciences, academic researchers, information technology, and the like. This means that foreigners from various countries come into South Africa to fill in these critical jobs because the current skills within the country are not enough to meet the demand. Listen to what the former Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Dr. Blade, said about this issue.
Today I'm launching the national list of occupations that are in high demand in South Africa. The list is updated every 2 years. Which skills are we short of in South Africa? Very important. As this is an important step towards helping us understand better the needs of the labor market and signals opportunities where our students and graduates are likely to stand a better chance of finding employment. Many of the occupations on the list can be associated with key areas and sectors identified as crucial for the reconstruction and recovery plan as announced by the President. For instance, it includes the following as critical skills that we are short of. In the digital economy, in energy, there is a whole lot of shortage of skills for energy. In infrastructure development, manufacturing, tourism, and agriculture, we are short of data scientists, web developers, computer network technicians, electrical engineers, concentrated solar power process controllers, mechatronic technicians, tool makers, gaming workers, crop produce analysts, agricultural scientists, just to name but a few. These will all be listed in this critical list that we are releasing today. It will be on our website. I also hope that students will look into this, because we still have a problem in South Africa. Too many students rushing to courses that are to programs that we are not short of in South Africa, that are oversubscribed. And that is just breeding unemployment. And we are still, by the way, spending a good percentage of NSFAS money to support students who are not going to get jobs at the end of the day because they are in areas that are not in high demand.
In view of this, foreigners have a positive impact on the economic development of the country. But you often hear of the term, foreigners are taking our jobs. Which jobs are being referred to? Please let me know in the comment section below.
This group of people say they do not want foreigners here. They say these foreigners are taking their jobs and their economic opportunities. That's what's been happening here in the east of Johannesburg with the xenophobia violence.
Hello again. Now, foreigners are not the cause of the country's unemployment crisis. Trade union NUMSA has slammed Operation Dubula, which is targeting illegal foreign nationals in parts of Johannesburg. NUMSA says foreigners must not be blamed. Let's speak about this now with NUMSA spokesperson Phakamile Hlubi. Phakamile, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time. Your statement is very clear, but it's very hard-hitting as well. Just for the benefit of our viewers who may not have seen it, you are saying that people who are campaigning for the removal, or forcible removal of foreigners who are in the country, especially illegal migrants, are targeting the wrong people. They should be targeting, for example, the governing party and various departments.
Absolutely, Bradan. For us, this is a very important issue, and we are very disturbed by the activities that we have been seeing taking place through the guise of these types of operations like Operation Dudula, where entities that have no mandate, I might add, no legal mandate that we know of, are now going around like policemen and removing people under the guise that they're removing illegal immigrants. I think it's very important that, first of all, we should ask questions on whose mandate is this? Whose mandate are they operating under? Because the people who are responsible for that type of work are the police, or in some cases, the Department of Labor, if you're speaking about workplaces. But more importantly, what we are seeing, which it disturbs us greatly, is this narrative which seems to be strengthening, that South Africa's unemployment is due to the fact that foreign nationals have stolen jobs. That is not true. The evidence does not back it up. The problems that people are experiencing right now have got nothing to do with foreign nationals. They've got everything to do with policy decisions that this government has taken and failure by this government to deliver services to our people.
And you point out in your statement, I mean, you use some data, some statistics about what's the percentage of migrants who constitute, who are in South Africa. It's about 4%. Therefore, it's a tiny minority. But you go to pains as well to express concern about the fact that the bulk of those who are being attacked are African migrants, which leads to that hatred and xenophobic behavior.
Absolutely, Bradan. Because, first of all, as you correctly put it, the Department of Labor last year, when they were before Parliament, confirmed that the
total population of foreign nationals living in South Africa is 4%. And that they only take up about, I think it's about 7% that exist that work in various jobs in South Africa. Now, our unemployment problem, we have 46% unemployment. So if we have 46% unemployment, which is almost half the population, how do you then blame 4% of the population for a problem that affects 46% of the population? It's just not conceivable that that number of people could occupy that number of jobs. I mean, that's just a simple fact. Secondly, the reason we've got such high levels of unemployment is because even the jobs that we do have, this government is not taking decisive steps in order to intervene in the economy, in order to protect jobs, in order to create jobs. If you look at, for example, what the apartheid government did back in those days, they set up state-owned entities whose role was not just developmental, but the role of those state-owned entities, Braden, was to create jobs for the white working class. The ANC government comes into power, and the very first thing that they do is to hollow out our SOEs through corruption and sell them over to the private sector. And they convince, and they have convinced even media practitioners, that the right thing to do is that there should be job losses, or that the staff levels or labor levels in all of these entities must be radically reduced. Now, if you are going to implement those types of policies and yet not do anything to try and replace those jobs or create new sectors or to create new jobs, you are actually contributing directly to the crisis of unemployment. And that's what this government has done. And what we've been saying as NUMSA is that it is important for the working class to channel its anger in the right direction. Channel your anger to the Department of Labor, who's failing to inspect companies and ensure that they're hiring accordingly. Channel your anger towards the Department of Home Affairs that's failing to manage the borders. Channel your anger, if you're angry about crime, to the SAPS. But why are you attacking the lady who sells sweets at Bara and you think that's going to change your conditions? That will not change your conditions. We are reminding the people where the real power lies.
Yeah, you're making very strong points and relevant points. And just to point out from reading your statement, while you are condemning in strongest terms, as your statement says, what you call the scapegoating of foreign nationals in South Africa, you are in no way in support of criminal activity. I mean, you point out in your statement that you want all foreigners, even those who are in the informal sector, to be properly documented, because then it will be easy to trace if there was a crime that is committed. Because if people are here illegally, you are not for that, therefore you are supporting a documentation of all illegal foreigners.
We believe very strongly that this campaign is a distraction. It's designed to distract the working class from directing their anger to the right people. We are not at all supporting criminal behavior. We believe that all foreign nationals who are in the country should be documented. But just like it happens in other countries overseas, where South Africans are working overseas, those people have the right to work. And while they are working, if they're documented, they should feel safe in those countries. And it is extremely worrying when the population is being deliberately misled into believing that their suffering is the cause of 4% of the population. It is our duty as a trade union that is aspiring to socialist and that aspires and promotes socialist values, that we remind our members and other members of the working class that our enemy are not other workers. Other workers these are our brothers, our sisters. In terms of our ideology, we should be uniting, we should be working together to deal with our problems. But to scapegoat and to attack people who are vulnerable, and we know that immigrants in South Africa are a vulnerable community, is a mistake, and it's going to lead to people being hurt.
Nonetheless, this is not to say that foreigners are not problematic, as they are often reported to be involved in drug dealings, car hijacking, robberies, illegal mining, and the like. But it would be ingenious to attribute all the problems that South Africa has to foreigners. This video was meant to highlight some of the issues within South Africa's educational system that are leading to massive unemployment of youth. Unless these are addressed, South Africa's problems of unemployment will not go away. Hopefully, the new Bella Act will be able to address some of these pertinent issues, but only time will tell. If you have enjoyed the video, please smash the like button and go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you have any suggestions or opinions about this matter, please type them in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video. God bless you.